Hi, friend. Okay, so things might get a little spicy today, but I feel convicted to share my story. Let's talk about personality tests, and then we're going to dive into whether or not they're biblical. I'm assuming most of you listening are like me, and you're probably thinking, it's just a silly personality test. It's not that big of a deal, right? Like, why should we talk about if it's biblical or not? Well, as you already know, or you'll soon find out, I love my Bible, and I am passionate about learning what it means to live biblically and trusting in the Holy Spirit to lead me in all that I do. So, naturally, I think we should take a look at whether or not personality tests are biblical. We see them everywhere. There are the silly tests that fill social media. There are strength finders in the workplace, and of course, my favorite, the Enneagram. They are everywhere. Quizzes to help you understand who you are, and that seems harmless, right? The problem starts when we begin to put our identity in what those quizzes or tests tell us who we are. It becomes a problem when we turn to these personality tests for all the answers, instead of finding our true identity in Jesus. So, let's talk a little bit more about whether or not they're biblical, and I'll share my story with you. So let's go. Are you tired of feeling like you do it all? Do you wish you could conquer your chaos? Do you set big goals only to feel guilty and defeated when you don't follow through? Again. Hi, I'm your host, Stephanie J. Clark. I too was overwhelmed with all the things. I felt defeated every time life didn't go the way I had planned. I wanted more time doing the things I actually enjoyed. But I kept telling myself I needed to do it all the time, because asking for help was a sign of weakness. Until I unexpectedly found peace in the quiet moments of rest, where the Lord showed me I needed to learn who I was so I could see the reason for my chaos. In this podcast, you will find tips on how to manage your home, strengthen your marriage, and find confidence like you've never had before, so that you surrender control and be led by the Spirit. So dust off that Bible and get ready to find the culprit to your chaos and start getting your peace back by rediscovering normal. Okay, before we get into today's episode, I wanted to take a minute and ask you, did you know that I wrote a book? Rediscovering Normal was first a book before it became a podcast. The book is all about my journey and how I began rediscovering normal. It's about how I found my faith after trauma, loss, and divorce, and how I started to fully surrender to God and live the fruitful life He has planned for me. I wanted to make sure you knew about the book because it's the book that God asked me to write, and I know there are people out there who need to hear the message. I'd love it if you'd check it out or share it with someone who may need it. You can find Rediscovering Normal on Amazon, and it's always linked in the show notes. Okay, that's all. Let's get to today's episode. Okay, friend. So, are personality tests biblical? I want to share my story with you because I hope it will help you if you're struggling to really know Jesus and surrender your life to Him. I have always loved personality tests and seeing the results. However, I always kind of felt like some of the questions that were asked, I was like in between answers. So I'd actually take these tests multiple times and answer different ways to see what results I liked best. Silly, huh? None of the results ever truly felt like me, which, to be fair, I was trying to find myself in these personality tests instead of turning to Jesus, which we'll circle back to that point. After my divorce, I had heard about the Enneagram, another personality test that gives you a number based on how you see the world. The Enneagram is different than other personality tests because it shows you how you see the world instead of showing you how the world or other people see you. I did the same thing with the Enneagram that I did with all the other tests. I took multiple free tests multiple times and kept getting different results. I wasn't ever satisfied with the results, and it never felt like me. At the same time I was starting to learn about the Enneagram, I was really working to deepen my faith. I was listening to all the podcasts and all the books because I knew my life had been missing Jesus. I eventually took the time to learn the Enneagram in depth and found my number and had never felt more seen in my life. I felt like, yes, finally, something that explains how I feel and how I operate. I wanted to learn everyone's number because I was so intrigued by how other people see the world too. I wanted to know their number so I could understand their ups and downs and strengthen relationships with the people closest to me. I believed in the Enneagram so much that it felt like the Lord was telling me to really learn this so that I could help other people learn it too. The more I learned about myself and the Enneagram, the closer I felt to Jesus, and my faith just kept growing stronger and stronger. So I decided to pray on it, and I eventually became a certified in teaching the Enneagram. I'm not kidding you. As soon as I completed my certification, I saw a video on Instagram explaining that as Christians, we need to stay far away from the Enneagram. I was shocked. The person was talking about how its origins is demonic and we shouldn't want anything to do with it. I also want to say that this happened just as I was really beginning to fully trust the Lord and allowing myself to be led by the Spirit in everything. So after seeing this video, for months I prayed and I worried about whether or not I had heard God wrong about the Enneagram. I really struggled and didn't do anything with my certification because I was so worried that I was doing something that wasn't biblical. So after months of praying, the Lord graciously kept showing me the message that He is sovereign over everything and that He can use all things for His glory. The Lord kept leading me to Apostle Paul and reminding me that Paul was one of the main writers of the New Testament. But he started out as Saul, one of the most known persecutors of Christians. The Lord also led me to King David, you know, the bloodline of Jesus. But even though King David was chosen by God, he still had his flaws. And I mean big flaws, like committing adultery with Bathsheba and then trying to cover up his sin by having Bathsheba's husband sent to battle and have him killed. That doesn't sound good. But God still used him in order to have his son born through the line of King David. We have to remember that God can and will use anything for His glory. I think the most important thing to remember is that personality tests can help show us who we are or what our strengths are, but they don't give us our identity. You can't put your identity in these tests. Otherwise, you're creating an idol. For me, it was specifically the Enneagram. I was drawn to the Enneagram because all the books that I read and certification that I completed were all focused around the gospel. My studying of the Enneagram was in a way that focused on making sure it was not made into an idol, but simply used as a tool to use in order to get into alignment with the gospel. The Enneagram can show you the condition of your heart. The other thing we need to remember when someone brings up the Enneagram as a tool they are using for self-awareness, we can't fall into legalism when it comes to someone's path to finding Jesus. I was already on the path of finding Jesus, but I believe the Enneagram helped me get there quicker. We don't get to judge someone's journey to finding Jesus. God is more creative than we are and will always be more creative than we could ever even imagine Him to be. Don't underestimate God or put Him in a box of what He can do or can't do for people. Even if that means using a personality test to get them on their path to Jesus. So, the question still remains, are personality tests biblical? Honestly, I don't really have a definitive answer for you. I think this specific topic takes discernment and really trusting the Lord and where He's leading you. For me, I feel very convicted to use the Enneagram as a tool to help other people learn who they are and why they do what they do in order to get in alignment with the gospel. I have done the heart work, and I am prepared to help others do that same heart work in order to step into the person they were created to be and live a life following Jesus. However, you may feel convicted the opposite. You may feel the Lord telling you to stay away. I absolutely believe in being obedient and listening to what the Holy Spirit is asking you to do. I think Jesus knows our heart, so he will use whatever means necessary to get our hearts aligned to him. So for anyone listening who is totally turned off by the Enneagram, I hope you'll simply filter out the Enneagram info that I provide and take in the good news of Jesus that I am so passionate about spreading. I hope this episode blesses you and helps you feel better about whether or not you should move forward with learning the Enneagram, so you can find the culprit to your chaos and start getting your peace back. Okay, friend, until next episode, keep rediscovering normal every day with Jesus. Do you wish there was a way for everything to not feel overwhelming and chaotic all the time? I know what it feels like to be so overwhelmed with all the things that come with being wife and mom, wishing my hubby would help more, my kids would listen, or that the house would just clean itself. Imagine if you could become more self-aware of your triggers in order to revamp your mindset so you can better manage your home and strengthen your marriage, with Jesus at the center of it all. That's why I'm offering Enneagram typing sessions, where I teach you how to use the Enneagram as a tool to start understanding what triggers you and makes you feel overwhelmed. I'll teach you how to rely on the Holy Spirit instead of your emotions. It's time to stop accepting the chaos as normal and start making Spirit-led decisions. You will be able to learn how to use the Enneagram as a way to revamp your mindset and establish Spirit-led habits in all that you do. You will walk away with resources to help you better understand how you see the world and that not everyone sees the world the same way that you do. You will have the resources to help get aligned with the gospel and stay aligned and apply to all areas of your life. So, if you're ready to start rediscovering normal by going all in with Jesus, by finding the culprit to your chaos and being led by the Spirit in all that you do with support and accountability, then grab your Enneagram typing session today. I only have 5 coaching spots for the rest of the year, so book now before spots fill up. I know you might be rolling your eyes at me and aren't convinced that this will work for you. That investing in your biblical mindset is the last thing you think would help with your chaos. It's my passion to help you get your peace back and develop a Holy Spirit mindset. You don't have to deal with the chaos on your own. I'll guide you through it so you can learn for yourself that Jesus is with you every step of the way, no matter how chaotic life gets. So check out rediscoveringnormal.com for more information, so you can find the culprit to your chaos, revamp your mindset, and live a life of peace when you go all in with Jesus. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Thank you for tuning in to the Rediscovering Normal podcast. Could you do me a huge favor? If this episode blessed you, can you give it a 5-star rating or leave a review wherever you're listening? And if you felt the Holy Spirit moving in you during this episode, could you please share it with someone who may need the message as well? This is the #1 way that others find out about the podcast. And if you want to keep in touch, go ahead and join the Overwhelmed Mamas community on Facebook, where we trade chaos for peace. Okay, friend, until the next episode, keep rediscovering normal every day with Jesus.